Welcome back to Secret Weapons, and today we're taking a look at the Bunting Melody Queen T. We do a lot of release day content here on this channel, obviously, if you've been around here for any amount of time. But as often as I can kind of justify it, I'm a big fan of doing videos on gear that I have owned for an extended period of time. And I'm very, very happy that that's what we're doing today with my Bunting Melody Queen T right here. If you've seen any of my videos or follow me on any social media platform, I am sure this guitar is familiar. I've had it since mid-2022, and I have used it on what must be hundreds of recordings and live gigs in the intervening years. This guitar is one of my most used pieces of gear in the modern context that is my studio and writing workflow. So before we get into sound samples, let's talk about two important aspects to this instrument and the company it is from. And part one is going to be how this guitar came to be. So for the uninitiated, Bunting is a guitar company out of Tel Aviv, Israel, founded and kind of like master built by a guy named Yaniv, who is just an artisan when it comes to building guitars. The way he goes about building guitars and kind of like dialing a guitar for a player, as all guitars are pretty much custom ordered when it comes to Bunting instruments. He's very much about finding the right guitar for the person looking to buy one. When you go on their website and kind of want to configure an instrument, you can put in all of the information about the guitar that you want. You can kind of set your specs, your pickup choices, your neck profile, your body shape, your color, all that. But when you hit submit, it will basically set you up to get scheduled for what they call a tone quest call with Yaniv. And what that effectively amounts to is getting on a Zoom call with the owner and talking through what it is that you want out of the guitar. Not so much in terms of specs explicitly, but more so the use cases, the feel, the tonality, the vibe you want out of your instrument. And he uses that to kind of help you re-refine what you are looking for in the instrument. And this alone probably sells some of you, and this alone also probably repels just as many who would chalk something like that up to kind of like woo nonsense. And kind of like, I can tell you this though, it is a really, really useful conversation in terms of talking about what different wood types do to an instrument, and in terms of having a conversation about what genres and what style of playing you are chasing down. And a good example of that would be my call with Yaniv. When we got on the call, it's been now almost 2.5 years since we had our Tone Quest call, and I can still remember it very, very vividly because we went into it with kind of two separate kind of notions of what my guitar was probably going to be. We both knew it was going to be kind of a classic offset shape because it's me, and let's just be real, if it's not a Telly, it's a classic offset shape. But past that initial conversation about body shape, we actually got into some really interesting conversations about the wood choices in the guitar and some of the electronic configuration stuff we were going to chase down. Obviously, I was going to do an offset, but we started talking about wood choices, and I like maple fretboards largely because I like the way they feel. I had never really dug in much further than that, but in talking with Yaniv, we started talking about the fact that a softer maple fretboard actually will offer a tiny bit more compression in your notes than a rosewood or an ebony board, which would be a lot snappier in your notes. And it was just something I had never really considered before, and really helped me formulate a conversation and kind of an identity around the kind of guitars that I find myself drawn to and why. We had this kind of moment where we both had different ideas of where this guitar was going to go sonically. Yaniv came into the conversation with me knowing the kind of music I had written kind of publicly up until that point, mid-2022. I am still very much an ambient player. I am still very much a kind of stacking guitars with no bass and no drums, and every single clean guitar just has all the low end, all the sparkly treble, just that full frequency range in every single guitar part. And we walked into the conversation where he was going well, based on the way you play, my guess is that you're going to want something like wide range, full spectrum Jazzmaster style pickups. And it was in that moment that I kind of went, actually, I have a different thing. I'm trying to move in this direction where I want to be writing more focused guitar parts, more band context. I'm realizing that some of my full frequency range guitar sounds that I've been leaning on so hard so far have not fit into a band context in the way that I want it to. And that conversation about wanting more bite and aggression in the bridge and something a little bit smoother and warmer in the neck is how we arrived at a gold foil in the neck and a tele pickup in the bridge instead of some sort of really, really wide sounding Jazzmaster configuration. And I can honestly say in a lot of ways, this guitar put me on a pretty straight line from where I was to where I am now. So for some of you, you can blame Yaniv that I don't play ambient anymore. So that's the Tone Quest conversation. We had that call, I think at like 11 p.m. my time because he's in Tel Aviv, I'm on the west coast of the United States. And we got off of it and I got some kind of update pictures along the way as it was being cut and built and finished and sanded and painted and everything else. And then a few months later, my Melody Queen T arrived at my house and I was smitten and also really, really taken aback by this guitar. So let's talk about the instrument itself and some of the things that are so kind of unexpected, familiar, and really cool about this guitar specifically. The first thing is obviously the shape itself. As you can see, it is a very classic offset, but very unique in its kind of like overall shape. It is much more compressed from kind of the butt of the guitar up to the neck joint. So instead of being a longer, more kind of like abstracted offset, it's kind of recontextualized into a slightly squarer offset that I really, really love and find very, very comfortable, not only on me, but I have loaned it to people before and found that it's also very comfortable for smaller players who like offset guitars. It's a medium C neck with a 25.5-inch scale neck, and it's got a 10-inch radius on the fingerboard. It's wide enough to be comfortable. It never feels big in the hand, but I never feel like I'm tripping over myself. It feels fast, but it also feels very much like a singer-songwriter guitar. Like big cowboy chords at the bottom feel just as comfortable as some of the more like technical stuff I can kind of find myself doing up high. The electronics in this thing are great. You've got a volume tone, super straightforward with a 3-position. And then up top, you have 2 switches. One is a series parallel for your 2 pickups, and the other one is kind of a slightly resonant low pass filter high cut thing. This sounds really kind of cocktail and cool with a fuzz pedal. That high cut though is really cool for some like lo-fi stuff, or like I said, that kind of cocktail fuzz thing if that is your sound. You have locking Goto or Gota, or however you pronounce that, tuners in the headstock. This guitar will sit on my wall for like a week straight, come off of it and be completely in tune. It's excellent. And that's the combination of great tuners and also the fact that we have a Mastery bridge unit with and I love this, a descendant tremolo system in the body. And if you don't know the Descendant stuff, you really should. It has that kind of like high quality, wonderful feel like the Mastery stuff does. But you have your kind of like plate where the strings land actually recessed into the body slightly, which basically gives you just a little bit more of a break angle at your bridge, which is really, really helpful for getting just a little bit more snap and attack out of your notes, rather than if you had kind of like that really long throw off the back with nothing but kind of like, you know, spaghetti string feel and tons of overtones. You get all those overtones, but you retain a little bit more attack, which I quite like. The guitar itself comes in just over 7 pounds, feels incredibly light, especially for kind of like the perceived size of it, which I love. And that comes down to a really specific thing that I think is one of the most interesting things about buying a guitar from Bunting, which is their wood choices. The body on my Melody Queen is European spruce, and the neck is Bosnian maple. And I'm pretty sure I don't own anything else and have ever played anything else that has Bosnian maple and a European spruce body. And that's actually, I think, pretty important in terms of understanding the vibe of this instrument, because I'm a big believer that you can tell a lot about how much you're gonna like an electric guitar by how it sounds unplugged. So we're gonna take this condenser mic we've got up top. I'm gonna grab one of my like Fender offsets, probably my Jaguar or something like that, and set this mic up and strum a couple of chords. And then we're going to grab the bunting and strum a couple of chords as well, because there is a very, I don't know, a very specific resonance and volume and kind of like EQ curve to the way that this thing sounds acoustically. It just doesn't sound unplugged the way any of my other guitars do. And I think it plays a lot into what I like about it plugged in. So let's go ahead and give that a listen right now. Okay, here's a quick reference point for how loud my talking voice is, leaning down pretty close to the microphone. And here is the bunting. It's worth knowing that I didn't level match those two clips. This guitar just is loud acoustically, which again, I really like and I think says a lot about the instrument, especially for me who, when I got this, I was mostly humbuckers, and this was the most single coily I'd gone in a while on a guitar, with the exception of like my Mustang, which was never out of the middle position. Being able to play like aggressive music on this set of pickups was something that I was nervous about because I was so used to using humbuckers for louder songs. You heard on that intro track, we go full tilt on this guitar and it feels excellent. There's no double tracking with a humbucker guitar or anything higher output in that track. That's all this instrument, and it's just fun to play. On that intro song, we used NeuralDSP plugins. We used Archetype, Mateus, Asato, and the Pliny plugin. And so we're gonna pull up the Mateus one, and we're gonna pull up the that kind of pink AC style amplifier and the Marshall style amplifier in that plugin, and use those for kind of like the clean sparkle sound samples and the kind of like heavier, more aggressive rock and roll samples as well, just to kind of give you a sense of the difference in tonal kind of flexibility that this thing offers up. So let's give the Bunting Melody Queen T a listen.
you.